coming up on this special edition of Carolina Week.
A look back at the major breaking news of the past few months.
From the high-profile pit incident that made national headlines
to the tragic accident that left many in the university community mourning.
Carolina Week's look back at spring 2006
starts right now.
From the School of Journalism and Mass Communication at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, this is Carolina Week.
Spring semester was an eventful time in Chapel Hill. In many cases, local news made national headlines, and Carolina Week captured it all. Hello and welcome to this special edition of Carolina Week. I'm Shaheen Sayal.
And I'm Philip Joltz. For the next 30 minutes, we'll take you through the best of Carolina Week for the spring semester. In March, a former UNC graduate drove a rented SUV through the pit, saying he intended to avenge the deaths of Muslims around the world. Reporter Chris Walker reminds us that reactions to the pit incident were mixed.
With the national spotlight still on Chapel Hill, students began to reclaim their spots in the pit Wednesday from a media circus. But in the process of getting back to normal, both the media and students struggled with the proper title for Mohammed Taheriazar and his actions.
Don't want religious violence.
A Monday morning rally sparked controversy about the word terrorism. Some see it out of context. Others demand that it be used. But what exactly constitutes terrorism? The CIA defines it as being premeditated, politically motivated violence against non-combatant targets by groups or agents. But the Department of Defense defines it differently, as the unlawful use of violence against individuals to intimidate government or society for ideological purposes. Even within the U.S. government, the definitions for the word vary. So how can UNC students expect to get it right? Some point to Taheriazar's own 911 call as evidence of terrorism.
Can you tell me why you did this, or
it's really to punish the government of the United States for their actions around the world.
Student body president Seth Dearman says he and university administration are not using the term.
Terrorism is a word that's been thrown out, and that's a word that's really inflammatory in a lot of ways, and it conjures these notions of large groups acting together and these kinds of intricate plots.
Dearman says plans are in the works for events to bring students together and promote greater tolerance after spring break. In Chapel Hill, I'm Chris Walker, Carolina Week.
Taheriazar was charged with 9 counts of attempted murder. He's being held in Central Prison in Raleigh. Well, after the incident, many wondered how Taheriazar could have gotten an SUV into the pit. Reporter Hannah Gordola has that part of the story.
When the shock wore off after Friday's hit and run, many students started asking themselves what the university could have done to prevent this from happening. Immediately, students pointed to these poles called ballards.
I just thought it was kind of ironic that they weren't up. I don't know, what's the purpose of having them if you're not going to use them?
Freshman Alejandro Rosado says it's not the first time he's seen an unauthorized vehicle on campus. A couple of weeks ago, an eerie foreshadowing.
There was a person actually driving through the quad, and they were clearly drunk because they were hitting things. They were hitting the bricks back and forth.
Senior Musin Omar has a similar story.
Been cars that just came in, and asked for directions before, so I have seen that happen.
A car, he says, drove from Bynum to Lenore, the same path that Taheriazar took. Behind Bynum, there are no ballards like these, just planters and bushes. A big SUV like the one Taheriazar drove can get through there easily. Grounds Director Kirk Talon says there are some talk about adding new ballards behind Bynum to prevent this from happening again. In Chapel Hill, I'm Hannah Gordola, Carolina Week.
Campus police now patrol the pit in hopes of preventing another incident like this one in the future.
In late February, 2 UNC students fell out of a window on the 3rd floor of Stacy Residence Hall. One died and the other was seriously injured. Reporter Crystal Calloway went to find out if the tragedy could have been prevented.
One word, emergency.
Yeah, I'm at 318 Stacy dorm, Chapel Hill, and 2 guys just fell 2 stories out of the dorm.
Okay.
But the descent was actually 4 stories, from the 3rd floor of the residence hall to a basement ramp below. Almost a week later, friends and family are still grieving, and the father of Keith Sean Smith wanted to check the new window to make sure something like this wouldn't happen again. Could it have been prevented? I spoke with an employee at the Office of Facilities and Planning who pointed out several building regulations, such as the ramp below the window and the tile in the staircase at the end of the hall. Stacy seemed to meet all of these standards, but one. Hall window sills are supposed to be nearly waist high. I spot checked around campus, and that was the case in most dorms, but not Stacy. The sill of this window is only about 2.5 feet from the ground, which hits at about my knees. Had the windowsill been a little higher, maybe it would have been the obstruction needed to stop these boys from falling out. In Chapel Hill, I'm Crystal Calloway, Carolina Week.
Housing officials have installed safety bars to compensate for the low windowsill. Tyler Downey is recovering at home and will return to school in the fall. In February, the DTH published a cartoon that sparked widespread controversy across campus.
The Muslim Student Association continued to ask for an apology, while the DTH continued to say no. Reporter Alex Cabe has the story.
What do we want? Respect! When do we want it? Now!
The controversy about Daily Tar Heel cartoons depicting Muhammad continued this week when students organized a sit-in at the newspaper's offices. Editor-in-chief Ryan Tuck welcomed the protest.
This is exactly the sort of civil action, the sort of general action that we try to promote. You know, we're always telling people to, call your town council and raise a fuss and, stand up for this sort of rights.
Protesters chatted, studied, and prayed, and reporters from other press outlets swarmed the newsroom. Meanwhile, writers and editors continued to work on the Tuesday edition of the DTH. Staffers left a plate of cookies for the protesters, which they gladly accepted. Many of the protesters weren't Muslim, and some had larger problems with the way the paper is run.
And I feel it's become more and more disconnected from the student body and from many of the interested student body.
Salma Mirza helped organize the sit-in. She says she has a plan if the DTH doesn't apologize for the cartoon.
We're prepared to go to advertisers and ask them to stop funding student publication that attacks its students, though we don't want to have to go to that level.
Tuck says the paper won't apologize for printing the cartoon.
You can only gain a deeper understanding of the issue after that sort of thing, but, the bottom line is still the bottom line.
A few of the protesters stayed about 7.5 hours and left when the DTH offices closed at 1 a.m. In Chapel Hill, I'm Alex Cabe, Carolina Week.
The Daily Tar Heel stood by its decision to publish the cartoon and said it would not issue a public apology. In December, hazing accusations about the Beta Theta Pi fraternity surfaced. For months, rumors swirled about what did or didn't happen inside the fraternity's house. Reporter Ross Widener has more.
Last month, the Beta Theta Pi fraternity pleaded guilty to charges of hazing. Up until now, exactly what happened that evening remained a mystery. But these documents obtained by Carolina Week are a look at the events of that evening and contain an admission of violent hazing in the past.
According to these documents, on the night of September 21st last year, the new members or pledges of Beta Theta Pi were lined up in front of the house's lit fireplace. Then, 5 fraternity brothers called pledge captains entered the room dressed in costumes. One was dressed as a football player and another as a clown. The documents say the brothers used the costumes to intimidate the pledges. During the ritual, the captains ask the pledges the question, "Where are you at?" The captains yell at them until the pledges answer, "Among my pledge brothers."
Enough evidence to...
Honor Court Investigative Counsel Jeff Causey.
They had made some improvements over the summer to help their new recruitment. Evidently, they hadn't fixed all their new things if they were going to be brought before the Honor Court.
And this incident isn't the first for Beta Theta Pi. In the handwritten letter from Beta Theta Pi President Kenny Thompson, he claims this year's first night hazing was tame. He writes 2 years ago the ritual involved a good deal of pushing, which he deemed as dangerous. But Thompson admits the hazing has been even worse. He writes that during his pledge period, they stood right up against the fire for a long period of time, causing burns on the back of their legs. We tried to contact Kenny Thompson in the fall for comment.
What happened here this past weekend?
No comment.
And once again, Thompson turned down our interview request for this story. A tip in this anonymous email led Director of Greek Affairs Jay Anhorn to the Beta Theta Pi house last September.
Mr. Anhorn said that they were pretty dirty. They were dirty and looked just stressed out, bloodshot eyes, and he just had this aroma of alcohol that he said they all smelled like alcohol.
Student attorney Greg Charville represented the fraternity in the case. He told the court that the alcohol smell came from beer poured on the pledges' legs to keep them cool, and the bloodshot eyes were the result of staying up too late. The chair of the Honor Court sent an email response to Carolina Week saying they could not conclusively determine that the pledges had been consuming alcohol.
That was reporter Ross Widener from Chapel Hill. Director of Greek Affairs Jay Anhorn didn't speak to us on camera, saying he was too involved in the investigation to make any comments.
This year marks the 7th anniversary of the Columbine shooting. The nation's deadliest school shooting happened in Jefferson County, Colorado. Sean Maroney tells us the effects of that tragedy are still being felt here in North Carolina.
911, what's your emergency?
Apparently there's been a shooting up here at Columbine High School.
On the morning of April 20th, 1999, Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold entered Columbine High School and killed 12 students and a teacher and injured 24 others. State Board of Education Chairman Howard Lee remembers that day and says it continues to affect North Carolina.
Obviously, the Columbine tragedy sensitized a lot of us to our need to focus more heavily on ensuring safety in our schools.
But with more than 2,000 public schools across the state, Lee admits it's difficult to mandate a uniform plan.
It is my contention that the principal, the SRO officer, the teachers, anybody who sees an individual in the school who looks like he or she doesn't know where he or she is going should turn to that person and ask if they may help.
After speaking with Lee and the Chapel Hill Carrboro Superintendent's Office, I visited some local middle schools. I wanted to see how long before an administrator approached me. My first stop, Guy B. Phillips Middle.
Hi, can I help you?
Total time, 2 minutes.
As you can see, it's easy to walk in our front door and take a left, and the main office doesn't even see you. So I'm glad you did the experiment. I'm glad that we passed.
I then tried Smith Middle.
Yeah, go to the front office.
Go where?
To the front office around the front.
My last stop was McDougal. The door was locked, and a school resource officer met me in the parking lot. All in all, our schools seem to be following Lee's advice, even 7 years after a tragedy.
When the crisis comes, people react and they beef up their security and they make a different response. But as the crisis impact wanes, people tend to go back to the natural behaviors.
Lee says he'll remain vigilant in order to keep our children safe. In Chapel Hill, I'm Sean Maroney, Carolina Week.
Lee and the legislature require that each school has its own safety plan. This differs from school to school, so parents should contact their children's principal for details. You can go to our website at carolinaweek.org for a link to all Chapel Hill Carrboro City schools. Well, a study that says fatty foods are okay. Now that's what I'm talking about.
Not so fast, Shaheen. For now, at least, we better stick to a healthy diet and follow the food pyramid. We'll have details in just 60 seconds.
Art can be many, many, many things. The North Carolina Museum of Art offers one of the premier art collections in the Southeast, and it's yours to discover. There's something for everyone. Works by classic and contemporary artists, a 164-acre museum park, an outdoor concert series, performances, and so much more. Experience all that art can be at the North Carolina Museum of Art.
Mother taught me. She's
averaging 18%. Balance the budget. Increasing clouds for...
UNC TV. Your remote stops here.
It's hard to keep track of all the health reports that say what is and what isn't good for you.
Scientists recently added to the confusion when they concluded low-fat diets don't lead to better health. But health reporter Kate Schoen says the study had a few holes.
UNC graduate student Erica Haney jumpstarts her weekend with Taekwondo. She complements her active life with a healthful diet that's low in fat.
In terms of food, yeah, I have to be conscious about it.
I definitely have to, when I go to the grocery store, think, you know, okay, is this something that's healthy for me, or is this something that's not?
It's hard to say which foods promote health in younger women like Erica, because the widely publicized study only followed women older than 50. For those women, the study said low-fat diets don't protect against breast cancer and heart disease. Doctor of Internal Medicine Tom Kaiserling says we need to look past the headlines.
The way that many people may interpret that headline is that diet isn't important. And I think that's not the way to interpret the headline, because I believe diet's very important based on all the data that are available.
Diet's important because not all fats are equal, but the study treated bad and good fats the same. Saturated or bad fats are found mostly in animal products, like these college favorites. They raise blood cholesterol, which increases your risk of heart disease. Poly and mono unsaturated good fats are found in plant oils, nuts, and fish, all along the salad bar. They lower bad cholesterol and protect your heart. Another problem scientists have with the study, the researchers didn't set out to measure the effect of low-fat diets on heart disease, a weakness in research design. In Chapel Hill, I'm Kate Schoen, Carolina Week.
Researchers said another weakness of the study was the women were followed for only 8 years.
And it might take a lot longer than that to track the positive impact of a healthful low-fat diet. The growing Hispanic population in our area has a TV program of its own. Alex Villarreal reports from the set of Our Neighborhood, also known as Nuestro Barrio.
This Spanish soap opera, filmed in Durham, believe it or not, it's true. The local newspaper Que Pasa calls Nuestro Barrio entretenida y educativa, entertaining and educational. And that's exactly what the miniseries crew shoots for. Assistant director Luke Barrow says the show is not only educational for viewers, but for cast and crew as well.
It's a very diverse cast and crew, most diverse crew I've ever worked with, which has been the best part. You know, there's been so much to learn about other people and other ways of life that I just haven't been exposed to, especially with the Latino community.
I'm here now on the set of Nuestro Barrio. Let's take a look. Quiet on set. The cast and crew of the soap opera, including creator Dilcy Davis, gear up for production.
4.3, take 4. And action.
Hey, Christina. Mexican actor Alonso Rodriguez plays Ramon Diaz on the show.
Así que te fuiste a comprar un auto.
Rodriguez says he knows firsthand the importance of Nuestro Barrio's lessons for Latinos.
It's important
that people know these things. That for some of us, now, are very basic. But I remember when I arrived here, I didn't know anything about how to set up a bank account, about what I needed to do, and if I should carry my cash with me all the time or keep it at home.
If you'd like to watch but you don't speak Spanish, don't worry. The show has English subtitles. Tune in to WB22, Channel 10 with Time Warner Cable, Saturdays at 1 p.m. In Durham, Nuestro Barrio. I'm Alex Villarreal, Carolina Week.
Yeah, that's good. Moving on. Okay, next.
Nuestro Barrio is taped in Durham, and the producers are often in need of extras.
Every year, members of the campus group Carolina Indian Circle celebrate their culture and heritage with others. Reporter Pam Brown takes us inside their annual powwow.
Adorned with vibrant colored feathers and bells, members from 17 Native American tribes showed off their costumes as they joined together for their grand entry. This is the Carolina Indian Circle's annual powwow. Kids and adults dance their way around Fetzer Gym to the beat of drums and chanting. Performer and cultural educator Lowry Begay says the loud beating of the drums is more than just a catchy beat.
We call the drum the heartbeat because the reason why is when we're in our mother's womb, the first thing we hear is our mother's heartbeat. That's why when people hear the drums, they are drawn to it.
Begay says the dancing and chanting during the powwow represents a celebration of unity.
So this is a celebration of life, not only for the Indian cultures, but all nations to come together and celebrate with our culture.
Besides the traditional Native American dancing, there is also a full display of Native American artwork, such as this dream catcher, which can ward off your bad dreams at night. Native American craftsmaker Shelley Swanson says the web in the dream catcher symbolizes the gatekeeper of dreams.
The web stops the bad dreams, and the good dreams, because they're good, they find their way through the web and come through the center and down to the sleeper to bring good luck and prosperity.
The annual powwow has grown to be one of the biggest celebrations at UNC. In Chapel Hill, I'm Pam Brown, Carolina Week.
Carolina Indian Circle is a student group at UNC and was founded in the fall of 1974. Well, sportscaster Michael Crow joins us now.
Thanks for being with us, Michael. I know a year ago this time we were celebrating a national championship. Haven't had anything like that this spring, but it's still been one to remember.
We haven't had anything, but there's been a lot to celebrate. Other successes. Coming up in sports, we've all seen Carolina athletes excel on the courts and on the fields, but we'll have the story of the work that these athletes do for the school community that they represent.
Moorhead Planetarium, where dreams become reality.
Welcome to Carolina Week Sports. I'm Michael Crow. Carolina's athletic program stresses excellence both on and off the court. Reporter Jessica Pruitt tells us Carolina athletes are impacting lives even before they put on a uniform.
UNC athletes are helping to make dreams come true for the kids at the UNC Children's Hospital. The service program Carolina Dreams is in its second year thanks to the efforts and vision of senior lacrosse midfielder Dave Weary. The program, aimed to partner student athletes with children being treated at the hospital, was created in hopes of helping these special kids experience what life as a Tar Heel is really all about.
This meet is only one of 4 sporting events the children at the UNC hospitals will attend with varsity athletes. By the end of the year, they will have experienced some of the best Carolina has to offer in sports.
The much-deserved time these kids spent at a gymnastics meet was once only dreamed about by Weary, but he says it's a day many of them will never forget.
The kids are the best part, because sometimes you'll have a kid who comes and is so shy at the beginning and won't want to talk to anybody, and really just kind of taking it all in, and you'll see by the end of the event they'll be out out on the court at the basketball game waving to everybody or talking to all the girls on the softball team or whatever the case is. And I think the transformation of them from when they first come and are kind of taking in what's going on to when they leave is amazing.
The athletes are more than happy to spend a day with the children, and many, like varsity soccer player Chris Litchford, find the kids' enthusiasm for life to be contagious and refreshing.
Kids that come out, they're so excited, and it's just really cool to see that. They love interacting with us, and we like interacting with them. They get to come out and see the events and the sports, so that's the best thing, is that they're so happy to be here.
In the eyes of these kids, the athletes are not only stars on the field, but in their hearts as well. With Carolina Dreams in Chapel Hill, I'm Jessica Pruitt, Carolina Week.
Well, the NFL is also in Chapel Hill. Carolina's senior class got to audition for scouts recently at the annual Pro Timing Day. Reporter Matt Estrich was there.
Scouts and coaches from nearly every NFL team descended on the Eddie Smith Fieldhouse to time, test, and try out graduating Tar Heel football players and determine their chances of being chosen in April's draft. Players like linebacker Tommy Richardson were put through different kinds of drills to see if they have the stuff to play at the next level.
You kind of feel like, stealing the expression from what they said at the combine, you kind of feel like cattle, but at the same time, I'm grade A beef, you know what I mean?
Everyone wasn't as confident as Richardson. Quarterback Matt Baker admitted to some jitters.
There's definitely pressure. I was almost more nervous last night than I was for any game. You'd think Georgia Tech, the first game starting, I'd be pretty nervous, but I was pretty calm. This, I felt like I've just been training so long, watching other players do their pro days and go to the combine, and it's kind of chomping at the bit to get out there.
Baker's performance was one of the day's best. The signal caller may be chosen in the draft's later rounds. As for his maligned pass catchers, grabs like these helped Jaworski Pollock erase the memories of some notable drops.
Seeing Baker throw the ball extremely well, and Wallace Wright catch everything, Jaworski Pollock catch everything. That's exciting.
Bunting considers guard Kyle Ralph a mid-round selection in the draft, and linebacker Tommy Davis, along with receiver Wallace Wright and defensive tackle Chase Page, candidates to make a roster via free agency. But whatever the scouts may be looking for in a potential prospect, One thing is clear. This year's senior crop of Tar Heels will be clawing and scratching their way into the NFL. In Chapel Hill, I'm Matt Estridge, Carolina Week Sports.
It's been a very eventful season for spring sports, and it was topped off by women's basketball run at the Final Four.
I know, we just wish they could have made it a little bit farther.
It would have been very nice.
All right, thanks very much, Michael.
Thanks, Michael.
All right, Shaheen, here's a riddle for you.
All right.
What's white, cute, and furry all over?
I don't know. You?
Well, you're right about the cute part, but that's not what I was looking for.
Well, we'll tell you about Phil's South American cousins after the break.
To change the world, you don't have to be rich, or famous, or play ball, or lead countries. All you have to do is tell your family you want to be an organ donor. Talk to your family about organ donation. Talk to your family about donating life.
Tina is the famous llama from the movie Napoleon Dynamite, and though we don't have Tina in our area, we do have the next best thing.
The movie Napoleon Dynamite made the llama highly recognizable, especially to high school and college students everywhere. Take a ride to Fuquay-Varina, and you'll meet one animal that's a close kin to the llama, but unique in many ways. It's called an alpaca. Native to South America, these cuddly creatures have soft padded feet and one set of lower teeth which they use to feed on grains and grass. Kathy Knight is one of the owners of the Kipling Pines Alpacas Farm in Fuquay-Varina.
We saw the alpacas on the TV commercial and said, oh, what's that? Visited a farm, just fell in love with them.
Dusty, Barnabas, and Rosie's Mia are just 3 of the 14 alpacas the Knights own. Because each one is so different, Kathy says every day she learns more about their individual character traits.
Everyone has a distinct personality, just like people do.
Like the Knights, one of the main reasons people breed alpacas is for their thick fleece. Once an alpaca is sheared, the raw fleece is collected, washed, and made ready for spinners. Raising alpacas and learning about them along the way has brought so much joy to Kathy and her family.
They definitely bring out the gentler side of you because they like to be calm. They're calm themselves.
Calm and curious, but just like their cousins, definitely not camera shy.
Well, as far as we know, people in South America don't use alpacas to help predict the weather, but we use animals for that purpose. Last year, North Carolina's groundhog saw his shadow, meaning there would be 6 more weeks of winter, and he was right.
But would the groundhog see his shadow this year? We sent reporter Tara Higgerson to get a sneak peek of this year's weather prediction.
This is Sir Walter Wally, North Carolina's own weathercaster groundhog. Will Sir Walter Wally give Carolina Week an exclusive early prediction for this year's Groundhog Day forecast?
He's in the mountains where he stays, and then he'll come down and visit us on Thursday.
I guess we'll have to ask some of his friends at the Carnivore Preservation Trust in Pittsboro.
We're here with Mary Stewart. She is a caracal native to Africa, and I think she might be telling us what the weather's going to be like.
Sniffing. That means wind. Let's see what Binturong's Coda and Stacy have to say. Windy. We've got the word. It's going to be windy. The forecast wouldn't be complete without a word from Isabella. First, curator of animals, Catherine Burtock, taught me how to speak tiger talk.
The noise that she's making is called a chuffle, and you make it by making a motorboat sound where you go brrr, and then rolling your R's like you would in Spanish class. That rrr, and you go brrr.
Sun, lots of spring. All right. Apparently Isabella says it's going to be a long spring, lots of sunny weather. I'm Tara Higgerson, Carolina Week. You heard it here first in Pittsboro.
Well, thank you so much for watching this special edition of Carolina Week's Best of Show.
Have a great night.
Good night.